so many faces here. It's nice to see so many people interested in competitive programming. I'm going to be here to talk to you about the AUCPL, or the Adelaide University Competitive Programming League, on behalf of the CPC, or the Competitive Programming Club. So the AUCPL is brought to you by Jane Street. They're completely sponsoring this series and this seminar, so we'd like to thank them because it wouldn't be possible without them, first of all. Just to introduce who we are, I'm Irhas. I'm the president of the Competitive Programming Club. I've been part of this club for a few years now, and when I started, I wasn't very confident at all in my abilities. I had a bit of C++ knowledge, but I sucked with DSA problems. So it took me about a year before I found some kind of semi-decent online resource which really allowed me to improve and be confident in my abilities. But I really wish there was some kind of university resource or someone to teach competitive programming over here. So that was kind of the reasoning for starting the AUCPL. I'll get the other committee members to introduce themselves now.
Hi guys, my name is Magid. I'm the AUCPL manager. I'm in my second year of Bachelor's of Mathematical and Computer Sciences. MATLAB was my first introduction to programming, and now I know a bit of DSA, but the league will help you guys out in first year to continue to accelerate your learning.
Hi guys, I'm Zach, I'm the Vice President, so this is my third year at uni now. So in first year I didn't have any knowledge of data structures or algorithms similar to these guys, and I joined the Competitive Programming Club at the start of my second year. And so I found the club really helpful and a really great resource to kind of upskill in this area, and I learned quite a bit during that year and managed to compete in one of the top competitions across Australia towards the end of that year. And we're hoping that with the AUCPL we'll be able to get more people into the position to be able to do things like that. So to start us off, what is competitive programming? I'm sure not everyone here has a clear understanding of what it is. Some of you may have competed before, but some of you may have not. But to summarise, it's basically a sport where you're given a series of challenging problems and you have to solve as many as you can within often a collaborative environment and a set time frame. These problems often come in the form of kind of medium-sized stories where they'll give you some kind of problem you have to solve, and they'll tell you what structure the input is in, and you have to write up some code or come up with an algorithm that will then, given a certain input, will produce the correct output. And so you want to solve as many of these problems as you can before the end of a given competition. So why do competitive programming? There are there's plenty of good reasons for this, but I'll go over a few key ones. The first is, like we've all mentioned, data structures and algorithms are a key thing in competitive programming and are also a key thing across the computer science and software engineering industry as a whole. Competitive programming is a great way to learn about data structures and algorithms in a more fun and collaborative environment than just studying it on your own. And it's really important, especially when you go into interviews and look for a job after you graduate. After data structures and algorithms, which is kind of a bit of more specific benefit, just general problem solving skills, especially in a collaborative environment and under time constraints. This comes up basically everywhere, especially in like the computer science or engineering fields. And so being able to practice this while you're at uni is really valuable, just to improve in general, and also another thing that employees look for. Like I've mentioned a few times, communication and collaboration are a big part of competitive programming, and obviously a great skill to have. Often competitions will be in teams of usually about 3, although even if not, they're often quite collaborative, especially when helping each other understand the problems after each competition. And then another major benefit is getting better skills in debugging, because of course during your assignments at university, it's very easy to have a lot of help from others and online resources when you're trying to debug your code. But in competitive programming, because there's that time pressure, and often you might miss an edge case, which is important to think of ahead of time. And that's something that's really important in industry that may not be reflected as much like in uni, where if you miss an edge case, you'll find it out when you try to submit your code. But in this case, you won't. You'll just need to come up with the edge case on your own, which is very important when developing your software product from scratch, or that's already been developed by a company for a while now. Because there's no way that you'll know the test case unless you can come up with it on your own and think of it ahead of time. So next we've got a bit of a guest recording from a person who you may know, Ravi Hammond. So some of you may know him from his bootcamp, from his study program, which has trained heaps of people, especially from Adelaide, to get job offers and graduate positions and internships at large tech companies. So during his undergraduate here at Adelaide, and then he went on to do a master's, he got internships at a variety of big companies, which you can see up on the slide. and is currently pursuing a PhD at Oxford, so he couldn't be here right now, but he's done quite a bit of work in helping us set up this league behind the scenes. So he's got a short message about some of the motivations behind the league that we're going to play for you now.
Hi everyone. I'm not able to be there right now because I am currently completing my PhD here in Oxford University. I wish I was there to meet you all and say hi. I just wanted to give a little bit of motivation for AUCPL, and it begins with a thought that I've always had, and I'm sure many of you have been aware of this too, that Australia is constantly experiencing a brain drain problem in the world of computer science. We are producing some of the world's top talent, and this talent is constantly leaving and going to work in other countries and other cities. And I've always found this quite an unfortunate thing, because it means that as an Adelaidean, we have to leave our city, leave our home, just to have our dream career if we work in computer science. And I guess I've always thought that it would be nice if Adelaide became a tech hub, and if Adelaide was a tech hub where all of the top companies were there, then we wouldn't need to leave our homes and families just to have our dream career. So this was a part of why I started my study program, RSP. A part of it was wanting to help level up the students to begin setting the wheels in motion to turn Adelaide into a tech hub. And I guess throughout this time, I realized that even when we train everyone to be good at algorithms and data structures and passing interviews, which is what RSP is about, I still observed a lot of other universities and countries around the world, like Russia, China, America, and even other cities within Australia, like UNSW over in Sydney. All of these universities are still producing way more top talent and producing a lot more employees for these big top companies, more than Adelaide still is able to. And there's something I realized that was a common factor among all of those universities and all of these cities, is that they have a deeply entrenched competitive programming community, from primary school students who do competitive programming. There's a big scene in their high schools, especially in Sydney. They run a high school division, and same as Russia and China. And among the computer science undergraduate students, competitive programming is ubiquitous among the majority of these universities. So with this, I've always thought, why can't Adelaide do this? Why can't we have this ubiquitous competitive programming community among not just the university students, but also trickling down into the high school students of Adelaide? And really, there's nothing stopping us. The answer is we can do it. And that's when I realized throughout the time of running RSP that that's what we need to do as a city and as a university, so we can level ourselves up and be contenders among the world's best, just like UNSW and all those other cities and countries that I've mentioned. So that's really where the Adelaide University Competitive Programming League was born, the AUCPL. And for us, the league represents a way for us to foster excitement, to foster a competitive nature internally without needing to face the pressures of competing against universities so much better than us. So for each of you, it gives you a chance to level up your own skills. Then what's going to happen in your career is you're going to find yourself easily being able to pass interviews. You'll probably unlock an excitement about programming that may have not been unlocked without the league, and it's just going to help everyone collectively raise each other up. So CPC has done an amazing job setting this up, and I can't wait to see all of the videos and the photos of you all competing in the league, and I guess good luck and have fun. See ya.
Thank you for that, Ravi. So what is AUCPL? AUCPL consists of two divisions. Division A, which will be people who are confident with their data structures and algorithms skills. It may be that you're a second year and you're currently doing ads, or if you already have done ads and ADSA before, so that's the league for you. And there's also Division B, which is mostly tailored for first years, or those of you who are not confident in your DSA capabilities. And we did that so it's accessible for all skill levels. It also offers consistent practice, so we'll have these competitions monthly. for every university calendar. So there will be 8 competitions throughout the whole year. And it will also be a good opportunity for you to make friends and be involved in the community, as well as network with other people who are in the same boat as you and the same skill level as you, so you can grow together. There'll also be free food at all of our events and prizes that we'll get to later. So Division B, this is the lower division of both of them. So it will consist of competitions that are 2 hours long. 4 prizes. First years will be eligible for Jane Street merch, and you'll be competing as an individual, so solo. But we still encourage collaboration between you and others so you can learn and grow together. Division A is where the large cash prizes are to be made. Each competition runs for 5 hours and it mirrors the ICPC format. Each team, you compete in teams of 3. All right, and now you will hear from Jack and Tom. Jack's speaking from Hong Kong, where they work full-time for Jane Street, our sponsor, and Tom's speaking from Sydney, and he works for TikTok full-time. Here's Jack.
Hey, I'm Jack. I was the secretary of the Competitive Programming Club last year. I really enjoyed my time in competitive programming these past few years at uni. It's given me some amazing opportunities. I got to travel to Sydney last year to compete in ICPC Regionals with my team Sprinkle Forces, and it's no small part the reason why I was able to get a job full-time at Jane Street working as a software engineer. Competitive programming really helped me develop my teamwork and problem-solving skills, things I use every day on the job. It was a lot of fun. I've also met some extremely talented competitive programmers since I've started work here. So yeah, I highly recommend that you all get into competitive programming if you've never experienced it before. I wish I had an opportunity like AUCPL to really hone my skills in when I was part of the club, so make the most of it. I'm really proud of what the committee is doing.
Hello everyone, my name's Tom, and I'll be one of the main problem setters for the 2025 AUCPL season. I've been competitive programming for about 4 years now, and in that time, I've solved hundreds of problems and even had the pleasure to compete in the ICPC regional finals with my fantastic team, Sprinkle Forces. These days, I'm a full-time software engineer at TikTok, something that I can definitely thank competitive programming at helping me achieve. The problem-solving and teamwork skills that you gain from the sport can be invaluable, both at landing the tech job of your dreams and also becoming a good software engineer in general. However, the main reason I got into competitive programming, and the reason I still do it, is because of the rush you get competing against some of the best programmers in tackling tough, complex challenges. There's no better feeling than solving a particularly hard problem and seeing your name rise up in the leaderboard, something that I hope you guys can all experience in this coming season. Best of luck to you all, and may the best competitive programmers win.
Of Division A. Otherwise, we have also cash prizes. So first place, Division A gets 1,000, second place gets 500, third place gets 200, fourth to sixth place gets $100, 7th to 10th place gets $60, and Barbara Kidman Prize, which will go to the top non-binary and female team. Barbara Kidman was the first female computer science lecturer at the university.
Yeah, so I'm going to go through kind of how competition scoring works. So this is going to be very similar across both the A and B divisions. There's a bit of a difference for Division A, which I'll go through after in regards to the whole season. But in general, like I mentioned before, the goal is to solve as many problems as you can before the end of the competition. And so the base level for how it's scored is just your number of problems within your team solved. Of course, because there's only about 8 to 12 problems usually per competition, there are a lot of ties in this case, so there is a method of tie breaking, which depends upon the time it took you to solve each problem that was successfully completed. Plus there's a time penalty, which is usually about 20 minutes or so for each incorrect submission. It's also worth noting that these time penalties don't apply for any problems you attempted but did not complete, so it's always good to have a try even if you're not sure. So then that's for each individual competition. For the overall league throughout the year, in Division A, we're going to be counting the top 6 of the 8 competitions towards your final score, which is essentially going to be a sum of the problems solved for each individual competition with the same method of tie breaking. Because we're aware that not everyone will be able to consistently make each event, that's why we've chosen to go with the top 6 out of 8 for each individual team. And then also, because we want the final round to be a really big event, we're encouraging everyone to attend by having a 2x multiplier for this round, which essentially will just be the number of problems you solve in that competition is doubled and going towards the total score for the overall league. And so this is particularly for Division A. There's going to be a live leaderboard at AUCPL.com, which updates after each competition with every team's ranking throughout the year, so you can keep track of where you are and how you're going towards those big cash prizes. For Division B, we won't have a live leaderboard because we don't want people to feel worried about being towards the bottom if they're not too confident in their skills, but we will have internal statistics if anyone is interested in asking the committee about how they've been performing or if they've been improving throughout the year. On AUCPL.com, we've also got a range of other resources. That's where all of our past problems will be uploaded after each competition. Currently, there is one set of competition problems already there. This is a Division A standard question set, so if any people who are new to coding or new to data structures have a look at this, don't feel too worried if a lot of it seems out of reach for you. We promise that it won't be like that in Division B, and we're going to provide the resources and help everyone needs to improve. Which I think Irhas will go through in a second now with the workshops.
So we're going to be holding a workshop every month at the uni, and in these workshops we're going to go through certain concepts that we'll be teaching that are very common to a lot of different competitive programming problems. And we're going to be going through certain problems that kind of showcase this concept, as well as practicing these problems together. If you have any kind of questions about this concept, if it's not making sense to you at all, you'll be able to ask a question to the committee directly, and we'll be there to answer any questions you may have. I highly recommend you guys go to these workshops. You don't even have to be in Division B to go to these. It's open to everyone, and it's a really good learning experience. So I highly recommend. In terms of our timeline, we have our first workshop on the 1st of April, and our first competition on the Saturday of that week, which is the 5th of April. I'm going to be going through what kind of happens on each competition day next. So on each competition day, you need to show up at the time we list on our Discord, because you need time to set up and also for us to mark you off for attendance, because all of our competitions are in person. We can't validate your scores if you don't show up in person. We also give you this time so that you can, bring any kind of cheat sheets you want to bring along the day, and so that you can get set up on the uni machines. Next, we have a few words from the founder of this club, Ragav Sachdeva. He's come all this way from Oxford to tell you guys about competitive programming and give you a few words of wisdom.
Hello, this is categorically not true. I was just visiting family. I just happened to be here, happened to get invited, and I wasn't quite sure what to talk about, so I just made the slides yesterday, so we'll see how we go. Okay? So for most people, for most intensive purposes, I'm just a guy who's going to keep you entertained until pizza gets here, okay? I have nothing to do with the league. As in terms of, I don't want to take credit for any of it. These guys put in all the hard work. So just bear with me, okay? We'll see, we'll roll with it. And not to say that I have everything figured out in my life. I'm still kind of figuring things out. So it's almost like conversation and discussion, things that I've been thinking about a lot lately. And you guys can, if it's something resonates, you can take on board. Otherwise, you can come up to me afterwards and be like, you're wrong there. Right, so life advice from someone who still uses a student discount, which is categorically true. I'm still a student. I still have my 15% discount for all things. But I was at this university from 2017 to 2021. So obviously not my lifespan, basically the time I was at Adelaide. Obviously you weren't here when I was here, so we'll just pretend that you all care about my life. I'll try to hook you in, show you some old photos, and get you guys invested in my life. And then maybe we'll go on to sharing some of my internal thoughts that I've been having lately. So we started easy, 2017, no photos whatsoever. I tried going through my Google Photos and old photos from the phone, couldn't find anything at all. But this is basically, not too different from, can I get a show of hands who's the first year here, by the way? And second year and above? Okay, 50-50 I'd say. So first year is, for a lot of you who are going through it right now, basically you start university, you kind of figure out, okay, well, what is it like to be a university student as opposed to being a high school student? A lot of it was the same for me as well, right? So you go through OE, join the CS club, that's what existed at the time, and just go through OOP lectures, figure out what it's like to be a university student. I guess in the context of competitive programming, because that's what we're talking about today, I remember vaguely that I got an email roughly halfway through the first year, maybe around the mid-semester break, that there is a competition, a programming competition being held at the university, and everyone should show up on a Saturday, and it goes on for 5 hours. So obviously I had no life and nothing better to do. So I showed up at 11 a.m. on a Saturday, only to find that there's absolutely nobody there, no one to give me any instructions whatsoever, what is even happening. I had no idea, other than the fact that there was like this little piece of paper lying around in front of the computer saying what I'm supposed to do, and there was a problem set in that corner over there in that room. So just go pick up the problem statements and list of instructions how to log on, and you could do this thing by yourself. No one else is here. It was very sad. So, as one does, instead of leaving, I opened a little packet, started working on this problem, signed up, didn't know anything. As a first year student, I mean, this might sound funny to a lot of you who are second year and above, but when you look at these problems and you've never done it before, and you've just done object-oriented programming, you've never used vectors before, you don't really know what the standard library for C++ looks like. I was like, okay, I can scroll through these problems, I'll see the ones that I can solve, and then I was implementing everything myself. I was implementing, I think, bubble sort or selection sort or something myself, rather than looking up how do you use the inverse sorting function, right? So it was very fun times, but I did spend all of those 5 hours. I think I maybe got 2 problems at the time, but I quite enjoyed that. I think the challenge was very interesting and very exciting. And then I got an email again the next month, same story. I showed up, no one else was there. But I did start working on those problems, try to get more of them. I don't really remember if I got very far, probably not, but it was fun. So I think towards the end of the first year is when I sort of made the decision that it can't just be me who's working on these, right? Like, the only reason why I'm not at the top of the leaderboard is because I'm the only one who's doing it, right? If I had a team of 3, I would magically be better than everyone else in Australia. So that was the motivation, basically, to try to get more friends to do competitive programming, so I started the club, right? And we'll move on to 2018. I do have some photos. Right, so at the end of 2017 is when I kind of registered the club with the union. Start of 2018, I had already started to think about committee and getting people to join and so on and so forth. Here are some initial logo designs that I made, right? And it's okay to laugh. It's okay to laugh. You can tell that I had no artistic bone in my body when I did these logos. So I'm glad I was vetoed by the rest of the committee, and someone else who's much better than I did made the current logo that is today. A good friend of mine, actually. This was the introductory competition, so we had like an introductory event, and then we organized a competition. A lot of people showed up, and that was the only time they showed up, which is very sad again, right? So a lot of people showed up thinking this is going to be great, just like you do, gullible people, and then they realized that I can't be sitting here 5 hours working on this one problem and it's just soul destroying. So a lot of people never showed up after that. But we did have a couple of people showed up consistently throughout the year, and I think this is a much bigger turnout than I've ever had in the first year of competitive programming. Just some highlight reels. So obviously there's Ravi again. You heard from him, so he's at the top of that guy. Did pub crawl 2018. I went on to do an internship at Google at the end of the year, and I can talk a little bit more about the process later on if anyone's interested. Basically, it was 3 months of playing Smash. That's all we did. I think that's what that brings us to 2019. More pub crawls, right? More events. I think this is a competition that Microsoft, at the time Microsoft used to sponsor the club, so they came around, they did a competition. I won an Xbox. I sold the Xbox to buy a Switch immediately, but don't tell anyone, don't tell Microsoft. Then I did go to Microsoft to do an internship, took a semester off to do an internship at Microsoft. That was great, and that was kind of eye-opening at that time, because before that, when I was at Google, I was like, this is great. This is what my life is going to be. I'm going to graduate, get a job here. This is summer camp experience. I get to play Smash every day. This is great. Going to Microsoft was an eye-opening experience, kind of. It was basically that I was doing work that I was really interested in doing, so I was doing like low-level assembly level work. I was writing assembly for an internship, can you imagine? And then I was really trying to do or get myself or talk my way into coming back as a returning intern or full-time onto a team that's doing something more exciting. Maybe something working on HoloLens. So I went to the building 99, which is the research building, and I tried talking to them, and they basically said, "Do you see those two doors?" And I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Choose anyone to get out." So no one wants to give like an undergrad student the time of the day in like the research building over there, right? Because you like to pretend that you're good and you're good at what you do, but you like to pretend you're good at what you do, where you can fake your way through it, but they can tell, they can always tell. So they weren't really having me. So that's when I decided, you know what? Maybe I don't want to be like someone who's like a blank slate that they can fit me or pigeonhole me into something that they want to do. So that's when I started thinking about our second, like quite double guessing whether I do want to do software engineering or whether I want to pursue that, right? I came back, did another internship at Google, because it was summer holidays, because I took a gap semester to do that. Played some more Smash, but I think at that time I kind of decided that, you know what, I don't want to be making buttons. So I'll take a little bit more time to figure things out, but I don't want to get a job right away. I don't need to be 21, 22 making money. That's what my mindset was at the time. 2020, famously no photos. It was COVID. No one was really doing anything worth photo taking. But during 2020, I was now enrolled in the honors years. Kind of, not really. So I took a gap semester, so I was supposed to graduate a semester late, but some of the electives that I had to do were second semester only electives, so I had to wait a whole year to graduate, but I didn't want to wait a whole year and not do anything for that semester, so I kind of enrolled in honors without really finishing from 3-year degree. I mean, you can kind of just talk your way through everything as long as you can convince out of school that it's a good idea. Just let me start the next degree before finishing my first degree. But I started doing a bunch of research projects, as you do in honors years. I published a few papers, that was very exciting. And I decided, you know what, this is great. I don't have to be an adult, I don't have to have a full-time job, I'll just continue doing this for the next few years and see where life takes me. 2021 came around, this is like, I've like one semester left. An email came around for me that said, there's this NASA Space Robotics Challenge and we're looking for students to sort of form a team and compete from University of Adelaide. So I sent an email to TJ, who's a professor here, saying, I'd love to do that. How about I be the person who's running the show, I do everything, I'll put in like 60 hours a week, but in exchange for that, how about you give me 6 course credits? Because I can't be working on this full time while also doing full-time honors, right? So I managed to convince them to give me 6 course credits, and I was working on NASA full time. I convinced a few more of my friends to join the team, and it was basically the whole thing was a blast. We worked for 6 months. Turned out pretty well. We won nearly 100,000 Australian dollars, more than that actually. It was 25 USD. And that's the team. You can see Ravi again there. So he features a lot here. He's still around, even though he's graduated. Super weird. Then I graduated. So this is around June, July 2021. And after that, I went on and started a PhD at Oxford. So this is my friends who have, I think half of them have left. I don't really know. But yeah, I started a PhD, and then beyond that, it's just a bunch of collabs, right? So met some very excellent, very, very cool people. I'm still there. I'm a final year PhD student there, so I haven't quite graduated, which is why I still get to use student discount, don't judge me. So beyond that, right, so now that we've all bonded, I thought hard about, I have nothing to do with competitive programming league. What do I come and talk about? I thought, oh, maybe I could give you life advice, but then again, I have not really lived, the only thing I know is how to be a student, right? I haven't done anything beyond that. So I was like, okay, well, you guys are students, so what value could I have? So I thought maybe it could be a conversation, maybe it could be like, I'll tell you what I think about. I am a student, admittedly, but I'm also, from most of you, like compared to most of you, I'm like a very senior student, right? So I've been a student for like 9 years now at university, crazy. So maybe I'll just talk a little bit about what you could do in life and how to get there, and then we'll see how that comes along. So what to do in life, and we'll come back to this actually. We'll come back to how do you decide what you want to do in life. Not that I have figured it out, but I have some thoughts, and this is based on conversations with a lot of people. How do I get there is an interesting question, right? Let's talk about how do you get there. And because a lot of you are doing computer science, there for you means one of these 4 things, right? You can either get a job at big tech, fintech, startup, anywhere. You could go into research, which I thought I was going to do. I'm kind of still doing it, so that's another pathway. You could do your own start your own company, do your own startup, so you could do entrepreneurship, or you could do something completely different, go on a tangent, take 180, and decide, you know what, computer science is not for you, or do something else, and I can't speak for that, right? So let's just talk over some of these possibilities and how you could get there. Right, so getting a job at big tech, right? If you want to get a job at big tech or fintech or one of these places, I mean, every company has their own hiring process. They get to decide kind of how they want to, what are the things they're looking for, and it keeps changing over years. But there are a few common patterns that I've observed, and I've interviewed a bunch over the course of undergrad, so I can just share, I can talk about that. I mean, you guys will form your own opinions when you start interviewing. But generally, these interviews are driven by algorithms and data structures, right? And a very, very good way to practice for them is through competitive programming. I mean, competitive programming is going to expose you to problems that are much, much, much harder than anything you're likely to experience in an interview. And if you do experience anything harder than what you've experienced in competitive programming, I think you should give up on that interview because they're being mean to you. So basically, do a bunch of competitive programming. Nothing really prepares you for it nothing prepares you for interviews more than competitive programming. Has anyone here heard of lead code? Has anyone not heard of lead code? Yeah? No, it's not a single person. So I don't need to, okay, I'll go through it anyway. So LeetCode is this website which the word gets thrown around a lot, right? Like, oh, go do 150 problems on LeetCode, and once you've done that, you're basically prepared for any sort of interview problems, which is largely true, but it's also not the only way to prepare, right? So anecdotally, I will tell you that these are my LeetCode stats, right? And if you can't see properly, I mean, they're meant to be these little bars, and this is from 2018 to 2021. There's little bars of like how much problems I've solved or submitted to during those years. This is a better picture, right? Even if you add all of that up, I don't think it adds up to 150. I think this is the highlights. So I did my first interview with Google. I think I had done like 20 problems back then. Same with Microsoft next year. That year I did 20 problems. And this is not to say that, oh, you don't need to do LeetCode and you can ace through interviews. This is more to say that there's a lot of work that went into, that's like hidden behind the scenes. So LeetCode is great for structured problems, but if you go to these competitive programming events, the kind of events that I was going to when, getting absolutely destroyed every single time, soul crushed, those problems are very, very hard, and that's all I had exposure to. So I used to go to all these events, and I highly encourage every single one of you to do that as well. And they prepared me for interviews, basically, right? So I would argue that they prepare you a lot better. And LeetCode's good for like brushing up, maybe like a week before interview. You can sort of go through different data structures and algorithms and sort by category and practice a bunch of problems. But really, the kind of skill set you want to build is not that, oh, I know that this is like a DP problem and I want to go solve that, or I'm going to practice for DP. You kind of want to be exposed to not knowing the category of problems, and just be given like a general story of like, oh, here's some input and here's some output, how do you write something to build a program for that. That's kind of how you want to approach problem solving. At least that's what my suggestion is, that's what I used to do a lot. Then the next category is if you want to get a job at startup. I think if you do want to get a job at startup, then I would care less about competitive programming. I don't want to, it's not a propaganda. I don't want to tell you that this is great and this is a CPC event and you should all be doing competitive programming. If you want to get a job at startup, it's the tech stack starts to matter a lot. And this is based on my experience with a lot of people who I'm friends with and who are starting a lot of companies, venture-backed startups as well. And tech stack matters because there's a difference. There's a difference in psychology of like how different companies hire, right? So big tech doesn't care about junior employees. They don't care about you at all. What they care about is mid-level engineers, but mid-level engineers are harder to hire for, and there's a limited number, right? So you kind of want to hire junior employees and train them to be mid-level engineers. That's kind of like the mindset. So what they're looking for, what big tech is looking for, is we're just going to hire very, very smart people, and then we'll train them on the job, what they need to know, right? So by the time they're mid-level engineers, we've kind of shaped them into what we want to do. So they don't really care about what programming languages you know, what frameworks you know. They have absolutely no desire for you to know or excel in any one of those things, right? So they care about whether you're smart, and the way they test for that is through algorithms and data structures and interviews. Startups are very different. They don't have a lot of runway. They don't have a lot of money to keep going for the next 5, 10, 100 years, as a lot of big tech does. So the startups care for what can you do now? What problems can you solve today? Are you familiar with AWS? Are you a good cloud engineer? Do you know React, or do you know some other obscure framework that they're using for their particular startup or product, right? So that's what I would focus on. Focus on building and shipping a lot of things. That's what you should do. Research is another interesting option. Again, if you're going to do research, I wouldn't really recommend focusing on competitive programming all that much. I mean, competitive programming, I think, is a good skill to have. It makes you generally better or good problem solver, so I wouldn't say don't do it entirely. But for research, you want to focus on, okay, well, I need to get into a good PhD programs, because you kind of do need a PhD. And how do you get into good PhD programs? Well, you need prior research experience, which is very silly because as a PhD student, you're supposed to learn how to research, not do the best research of your life. But to learn how to do research, they're required to have done research before, which is a little bit silly to me. But for that, you basically need to be good academically. So make sure you have good GPA. Start working with your professors, your lecturers, and start doing research projects with them. Maybe do an honors year and try to publish something. And basically, your pathway to a PhD program is if you can convince. So there's no standardized recipe like it is for big tech. Like you can grind lead code and get into big tech. So for PhD programs, you basically need to convince someone that I would be a good student and can you take me on as your advisee, right? And for that, you need either to directly work with them if you're fortunate enough, or work with someone who can then refer you or give you a list of recommendations. So that's what you want to optimize for if you do want to go down this path. Then there's entrepreneurship. I haven't cracked this at all. I have just general vague things to say about it, which is you could treat it as a numbers game. So basically try a bunch of different things, try to push and ship a lot of, shipping is very important. Make sure to not just do ASCII games in a terminal or like get a project. Make sure to rent like a $4 per month DigitalOcean droplet and host your project so people can see, people can use. And if you're solving a real problem, and if you solve 100 of them, maybe one of them will actually be big enough that it will start to take off. I don't know, it's my hypothesis. The other way to do it is actually you go out and be an entrepreneur, so you want to be an entrepreneur, and you go speak to a bunch of people, try to identify their problem and see if you can convince them to pay you to do it. It's harder to sell because why should you be the person as an undergraduate student to do it? I don't know, but I do think it's the honorable path. I think convincing someone to pay you money for solving a problem for them is extremely, extremely difficult. So if you want to work on something super challenging, startup's probably the way to go. I do recommend it. I think there's no bigger glory than doing a startup. So yeah, worth considering. So let's go back to the previous questions. We talked about a few different things, right? So what you can do in life. Let's talk about how do you decide what you should do, right? It's hard because you probably don't know. You don't have a lot of experience. I don't have a lot of experience. And that's okay. And one of the things I tell myself is life mortality in Australia is like, I think, 81 for men, 85 for women. And you guys, I mean, we haven't lived like 1/4 of our life, right? So we don't have to have everything figured out right now. That's okay. I mean, the way, one of the examples someone gave me was, it's very interesting that if you speak to someone who's like in their 70s and they've had like a 50-year-long career, you don't ask them, oh, have you worked for like 50 years or 54 years? Like, you don't really, it doesn't matter, right? So if you take those extra 3-4 years, you don't have to be working at 21, 22 or have everything figured out. You can take those extra 3-4 years, maybe another 10 years, and that's still okay. Like, you're still not even halfway through your life. So it's all fine, it's all good. There's only one thing. I mean, it's just be true to yourself. Just know thyself, right? Figure out what is it that you want to optimize for in life. Is it money? Is it prestige? Is it power, challenge, something else? And I can talk a little bit about some of these things, and I would love to get your opinion as well. But these are the things you should really be thinking about, and then that will sort of inform you what you want to do in life, right? So the first one is money. Obviously, you do want money. Everyone wants money. It's a survival thing. You do want money. But I mean, it's well known that money has like diminishing returns after a certain point. So if you have enough for food, shelter, maybe a little bit extra for like holidays and things, beyond that, it really doesn't matter. Like if you have 10 million or 15 million, it makes virtually no difference in your quality of life. So the way I would like to think of money, or the way I like to think of money, is more like a constraint. So if you're trying to optimize for something in life, there are variables you're trying to optimize for, and then there are constraints around them. Money should really be constraint, not something you optimize for. That's my suggestion anyway. There's prestige. So do you want to work for Google just so you can say you work for Google and impress people? Is that the idea? And if it is, just be true to yourself about that, right? But generally, it's a trap. It's a trap for the same reasons as why owning luxury brands is a trap, right? Like, sure, maybe you can fool some people who don't know any better, and they'll think highly of you, but generally it doesn't really increase the quality of your life. So prestige, I mean, it correlates with a lot of other things that you might care about, but don't actively try to optimize your prestige is what I would suggest. I know there's this culture, I know this because I have a younger brother who's at university, so I kind of hear about people through him. I know there's a culture going around that if you haven't made it to James Street, Google, some of these big tech or fintech companies, that you haven't made it in life. And that's objectively not true, right? You shouldn't be thinking about these things, you shouldn't be trying to optimize for them. In fact, if you do a startup, and if you're not even doing anything, to me, that's more honorable parts. If you need social validation, if you want to go into big tech or fintech just so you can get social validation, just come to me, I'll give you social validation regardless. So don't try to optimize for prestige and get a job, right? Then there's power, right? So do you want to be somebody? Do you want to do something, make impact, all those big words? And it's good because you get to say, oh, I did this thing, like, oh, I started the Competitive Programming Club, or all of these things, me. And it feels good to be able to say those things. I think power is good if you can wield it. The problem is when you're young, power is generally, if someone's handing you power, if someone's like, oh, do this thing and I'll give you power, like, oh, I'll give you this job and you'll be in a position of authority, blah, blah, blah. When you're young, that's generally borrowed power. It's not really yours. So you're sort of like learning this power to sort of exercise it in a way that you don't really get to decide, and it's just not fun, right? I mean, I think the exception to this, again, is probably doing a startup, because then you can kind of organically grow it. But if someone's trying to offer you power, they're probably trying to trick you in some way, try to give you less compensation in exchange for power or something else. So maybe don't try to optimize for that either. Something else. Could be anything, right? Maybe you're just trying to survive, which is fair enough. I mean, another important thing is, how do you future-proof yourself, right? Because if you think that you can have a career as an engineer and be able to code for the next 50 years, you're grossly mistaken, right? And I'm sure everyone here now uses like Claude or ChatGPT to code to some degree, right? And these models are getting better and better. I learned programming before Claude and ChatGPT era, and you guys will never know what that's like. So I mean, these models are here. They're already getting better and better. It's not so hard to. I mean, it's already the case that one person can just do the job of a lot more. You just need to be informed enough to know high-level things that you know how to write or read code. You don't understand a particular framework. You can just prompt these models, and they can do a lot of the heavy lifting. That doesn't mean that it's replaced humans quite yet, but that does mean that previously what it would take a team of 10 maybe now takes a team of 3, right? So the job market going forward, I don't really know, and it's a scary thing. So you do want to think about how do you future-proof yourself. Maybe it's fine now. Maybe you can get a job. Maybe you get a job at a very fancy place and work for 5-10 years, and that's enough money for you to retire, and you can invest and live off of dividends, blah, blah, blah. And that's okay, but do think about those things though. Do think about, what is my exit strategy? If your strategy is that, oh, I got a job, and now no one's kicking me out of here, or I will never be made redundant, I think you're mistaken. So do think about that as well. Not to scare you, but these things are scary. Just think about, what are your motivations for wanting to do what you want to do, and what's the path to get there. I think for me, I still haven't figured it out, but I have some opinions. I'm an opinionated person, and I think just to tie it back into competitive programming, why this is a great thing is because it gives you the way I would look. I mean, you can do it for fun. That's part of it, right? Like select sport. Why would you play hockey, soccer, whatever? Because it's fun. You can totally do that. But if you're trying to be a little bit strategic about it, I think it still makes a lot of sense to do it because it gives you a suite of tools at your disposal. So like, for example, I think in my slide there was like a logo of NVIDIA as well. So like earlier this year, this is my final year of PhD, by the way. So earlier this year, I was applying for internships because I'm going to graduate at the end of this year, so I'll just do one. And I was interviewing with NVIDIA and Amazon and all these other companies with very little preparation, but I still got an offer from NVIDIA because I've done lots of competitive programming before from undergrad. So I look at a problem, and a lot of it is now just about recall, and you'll realize this as well. So a lot of the problems and interviews that you end up coming is not so much about how smart or how smart you are if you're a genius. It's almost always about where have I seen this problem before and how did I solve it back then. So it's a lot about recall and pattern matching. So if I was doing an NVIDIA problem, I saw the problem, I was like, oh, it's just topological sort. I just need to construct a graph, do topological sorting, that's the answer right there, right? So that just came naturally to me, but it's not that, oh, I'm a genius or whatever, it's just because I've been exposed to those kinds of problems through competitive programming. So I do recommend the league. I think it's a great idea. I wish I had that. So if there's one thing that I've realized is, if there are people at your university who are older than you, have done something you want to do, that makes your path to get there a lot easier, right? So if there are people who are willing to organize workshops to teach you about certain kinds of problems, that's just going to make your life easier because you don't have to discover them from scratch by yourself. So I do recommend doing that, but I don't want to, I think it's been long enough, but I don't want to necessarily turn it into a philosophy class. It's okay to just want one or more of the book before. Just figure it out. You don't have to tell anyone. If you want money and be greedy, just don't tell us all about it. But you do need to know by it for yourself if this is something you want. And once you know that, you can try to figure out a way to optimize for it. And that's probably all I have to say.
Right, thank you, Ragav. That was very insightful, and I think a lot of people would have liked to hear that. So I guess that concludes the seminar. Now we are opening it up to you guys for questions. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. We're going to have some people running around with mics, and we'll answer them. In the meanwhile, you can scan the QR codes up here to join our Discord or to register with the AUCPL as in the A division or the B division. In case you don't have a team yet for the A division, when you go outside for pizzas, not yet, you guys can probably talk to each other and form teams outside. But for now, yeah, feel free to ask your questions. Yes, yeah, you can, but you probably won't be able. Yeah. So the question was, can we go from B to A? You can, but it's going to make it harder for you to win that overall prize. But you definitely can. Yeah.
Just to add to that, yeah. So the overall prizes are mainly for Division A anyway. So if you want to start in Division B, that's totally fine. And because there's not really a major overall ladder for Division B, that's kind of on purpose. So we encourage you, if you want to have a go at Division A, give it a shot. And that way, I think that's a really good idea, especially if you want to learn as much as you can this first year it's running, because we will hopefully be back next year with similar, well, hopefully much bigger prizes as well, and so then you can have a good crack at it then for Division A.
Anyone else? So we had that in mind. Well, yeah, you can.
So if you don't attend a couple of the events, is there a limit to how many you can not attend before you get disqualified as a team or anything?
That's a good question. We won't really disqualify you, but what happens is we take the top 6 out of 8 competitions for your overall score. So you can miss about 2 before that starts to disadvantage you. We're not going to disqualify you, but your score's not going to be as high as someone who's competed 6 times if you've competed 5 times. If that makes any sense. Yeah. Just wait for the.
Sorry. Can you let's say in the first competition you have three people on the team, but then in the second competition one of the people can't come. So can you bring another person to fill his spot?
That's a good question. So, I'm assuming that's for Division A because that's the one with the teams.
No, you won't be able to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. But you can still compete with 2 as long as you tell us that there's one person missing. Yeah, that'll be fine. Anyone else?
Misha? I can just ask it so you guys say I can't make it for the entire length of it. So say I can make it maybe from 11 until 2 p.m. Can I still attend to that time and then just leave afterwards?
Yeah, so in case you didn't hear, the question was, if you can only show up for the first few hours of the competition for Division A, or any of the divisions, can you still come along? And the answer is yes. Just stay for however long you want. And just let us know when you leave, just so that we know who's in the competition at all times. We really want to make sure everyone's got a fair chance and no one's cheating from outside influences, that kind of thing. Stay for how long you want. Okay, is that all the questions? Okay. Okay, one more.
Yes, do you have to have a team of 3?
I mean, we really recommend you do, because if you don't, that's probably going to disadvantage you, but you don't, it's not a hard requirement. Yeah, that's like the max team size. We recommend you have 3, but you don't have to. All right, if that's all the questions, feel free to grab some pizzas, guys. I know you've been waiting to hear that for a while. You can go through that back left door and get a pizza and come back in if you want to sit around some more.